Hello, folks, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Crypto Byte. Today is Thursday, March 24th. We've got Bitcoin sitting above 43K, ETH above 3K, pressing up against some critical levels, but also got the alts making a move. So plenty to discuss today before we get started. CJ, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing well, Monty. Hope you're doing well also. Nice to see Bitcoin over 43K here. A lot of stuff like that I want to check out, including the bear market resistance bands, as well as some other logarithmic regressions on ETH. I think that could be cool to go into briefly here this morning. But yeah, anything you'd like to start out with?
I guess we need to start with, the thing that everyone's been talking about. I saw members of our community continuing to discuss this, and it is important, unprecedented, lots of different adjectives to describe this, but that is Do Kwon and the Terra Alliance purchasing, incredible amounts of Bitcoin. And I just wanted to provide some clarity here. This is a tweet exchange between Mr. Do Kwon himself, the king of the apes, and Adam Back, who some actually believe to be Satoshi. But Adam asked a good question. Where is this 10 billion coming from? And Do Kwon says it's not 10 billion today. As the UST money supply grows, a portion of the seigniorage will go to build Bitcoin reserves bridge to the Terra chain. We currently have 3 billion in funds ready to seed this reserve, but the technical infrastructure, bridges, etc., is still not ready yet. So essentially what we've been seeing is so far they have $3 billion worth of funds to deploy. They're looking to deploy 10 billion total to acquire Bitcoin to back their UST. And they're unloading this in $125 million order clips. We can see that from Whale Alert as well. $125 million order transfer from unknown wallet to Binance. But I think what's most notable about this, CJ, is what we've been seeing in terms of technical price action and how the candles have been reacting to this. It's been a slow and steady grind up, and where in most instances with retests of these upper critical levels, they're sold in too hard. That sell pressure, exceeds any buy pressure at these levels, and we come back down to retest the lows. Not seeing that here today as we continue to kind of sit up at the top of this level. That's even following a TD sequential sell 9 2 days ago. Still, at this level as the $125 million clips continue to roll in, providing some really nice buy pressure and ultimately, keeping us above 43K. So very, very interesting market. It's not very often that you have someone, telegraphing a $10 billion buy and allowing people a chance to front run it. But it seems like that's what's happening here. And obviously Bitcoin responding favorably.
Yeah, and not everyone on the same page in terms of like the overall impact of these spot buys, or not even spot buys perhaps, but I just wanted to share this one interaction just to kind of follow up on what you had mentioned, Monty, which
Willy
is,
Woo?
yeah, so Kyle Davies from 3AC. I can tell many of you have not executed size before. Let me tell you, buying 125 mil of BTC for 3 months is a lot. However, Willy Woo made a point that that's really only 2 BTC per minute. Bitcoin's liquidity, even in bear markets, can easily swallow that in seconds. And that's on a single leading spot market, not even spreading it across multiple exchanges. Which, fair point. Kyle follows up by saying liquidity is a sponge. 3,000 BTC per day for a couple of days is easily absorbed, but 200K ETH per quarter will not, methinks. Yeah, so quite interesting, the cumulative effect of that. Either way, regardless if it's making a difference, it's the narrative that's really driving the market and what people are really excited about right now.
Yeah, absolutely, CJ. I mean, regardless of how that does affect the market, and I do agree with Willie to an extent, but there's a couple of different elements at play, right? Like knowing that there's this much capital that's going to be imminently injected into Bitcoin is, favorable. So if you're a speculative investor looking to, make a short-term trade, that there's all this capital that's potentially flowing in as buy pressure, that raises your confidence as a speculative investor. I personally have felt that, in my investments. Like this is giving me more confidence in the market. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that. Also, another thing that a lot of people have talked about is what this does to traders that have been looking to go short. The fact that we haven't really corrected at all, and the fact that we have these inflows of Bitcoin means these traders are going to have to continually cover their shorts. And that's what we've been seeing here. Traders have been going short at the top of this range at 43K, expecting a subsequent correction like we've seen each time we've come up to retest this level. We haven't seen that yet. And as a result, they're, being forced to cover their shorts, and, price is maintaining these high levels. So it is certainly having an effect on the market, regardless of to the extent at which, we can absorb that supply, still definitely affecting market sentiment without a doubt.
Agree with you there, my friend. Why don't we get into some charts?
Let's do it.
So just starting out very basic with Bitcoin here, and the resistance band that we watch quite carefully. Many in the space do, but we are very close to coming up on this level. I know it's just a couple of weeks behind, but we are basically within striking distance of getting up within this level now of the new bull market resistance band or bear market resistance band, whatever you want to call it, similar to how we broke through in July and August. So that's been a critical level that determines a lot of where the trend wants to go. It's been very reliable in terms of calling the macro trends in these environments. And so that's something I definitely want to watch for going forward. And it just, it means that level at 43 to 45 is just even more important than many want to think. I also do want to talk about some logarithmic regression. Not just for Bitcoin either. I also want to look at it with ETH. But first, might as well take a look at the Bitcoin weekly chart. Still bouncing quite a bit, looking pretty good. Remember, we talked about the Williams VIX fix indicator and how when you get a massive spike in green in the bars down here, once you return to gray after that period of very high volatility, or in other words, capitulation, typically you have some pretty decent rallies or some increase in prices following these capitulation events where volatility spikes to unprecedented levels. We got that very similarly a few weeks back, and now we're on our fourth gray bar following that capitulation event, kind of on our way up. So pretty bullish from the macro perspective to see price climbing after that capitulation and volatility. Also, if you look a little bit closer on the daily, we really are pushing up towards that level at roughly 45K. But we see this nice support level continuing to increase below us at roughly 39 to 40K now. But let's get to ETH, because we don't talk about ETH as much, but I do want to show something different. This is not just that logarithmic regression is not only just applicable to Bitcoin, but I think it's also applicable to ETH. You can see some of these levels, how they've really performed well as tops and interim critical levels throughout the trend. And so when you look at where we're at now, we're at the exact point of where we basically found support and bounced during the summertime in those intermediate lows. So, it's really big deal that we've got back above this level in the last couple weeks. And now, you really need to see a continuation up to that band. And then, if you get that, then we can really start talking about, potentially a new trend forming, potentially coming back to touch the top of that band at roughly, 5K, something like that. So quite interesting to just observe from a macro perspective. If we do overlay the resistance band, you can see it tells a very similar picture to Bitcoin in the sense that we are pushing right up against that critical breakout level after weeks of very low volatility. So should be a big move in either direction, but it's right now it's postured to the upside. So we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. It's making me really nervous though, seeing Ethereum Classic, GME, AMC all up like 100% this week. So that's the one thing that's kind of
it's a little concerning. Those are typically things you see around market cycle tops or before, big corrections when we have speculative fervor and kind of irrational price action driving markets. I don't know if that's the case here because, we are in a very different market conditions. But, I agree with you, CJ. In terms from a technical perspective, things are looking very favorable for ETH. And just to quickly kind of reiterate, you were talking about the weekly perspective here, even on the daily perspective, right? We're pressing right up against this critical level. We've maintained this downward sloping trend line over the last couple of weeks since the, really the start of the year here. And now we're pressing right up against it. And again, with, ETH, most times we've retested these levels, we've been sold into hard. Not in this instance, still seeing some buy pressure come in at these levels to mitigate the profit taking we're seeing from the traders that are likely, with a cost basis down around 2,600. So that's encouraging. Last thing I'll say about ETH is the fact that this 20 period smooth moving average is actually turning up for the first time since all the way, back, here when we had that short squeeze out of the market. So, obviously different market conditions driving us up this time, a more steady, slow grind up. But the fact that we're retesting these critical levels and not immediately being rejected to the extent at which we've seen on previous occasions tells me that we have more significant buy pressure stepping in, and that may allow us to break above these critical levels and start to trend in the right direction. So, from a technical perspective, I agree, CJ. All things are looking like they're ready for takeoff. We're pressing up against some highly critical levels. And I want to see what happens when we break above them. And it's not just Bitcoin and ETH, right? There's a few other assets that we can talk about in the Doge of the day, like Atom, Cosmos. I think all have clear breakout levels to the upside that provide some pretty interesting trade setups. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth, but I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, that's basically all I got as well. The only thing that I want to share that I messed up a little bit earlier was just the bull market resistance band, where I had it set to 2 weeks because I was looking at a 2-week chart previously. And then, now you can see it on the 1 week. It's much more clear and evident where, we are literally pressing up against that level within, $70 on Ethereum. And then when you look at something comparable with Bitcoin, it tells you the exact same story, where we've actually gone up to test that level. And this is a very common level of rejection. 1, 2, 3, basically 5 times have been tentatively rejected off this level. So, you can also see the narrowing towards the end as just a reflection of a lack of volatility. So that's definitely a critical level that I would want to be watching going forward now.
Yeah, me too. Lots to watch this week. Lots to watch. And we'll cover a lot of that in our members only Doge of the day. Right after this, if you guys would like to join us there, you can do so at the link below me or in the description at marketrebellion.com/try crypto. You can try it out for a week. We got a pro charting service, a chat. We offer trade insights. One was just published this morning. We'll cover that a bit more in depth and a whole lot more. So definitely head over there and check that out. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. But that's all we got.